1970s didn't just produce hits, they created legends. Arena rock, punk, disco, and heavy metal all exploded onto the scene, turning musicians into cultural titans. From theatrical British imports to gritty American innovators, from political anthems to pure party soundtracks, this decade saw rock concerts become stadium events with tours drawing millions worldwide. The 70s were the first decade where rock truly became a global phenomenon, with bands that didn't just define their era, but changed music forever. Let's count down 12 of the most iconic bands of the 1970s, the groups that shaped a decade and influenced generations. Number 12, the Ramones. The Ramones burst out of Queens in 1974 with a simple mission: strip rock and roll back to its essence. While other bands were crafting elaborate concept albums, these four leather-jacketed guys had a different idea. Their 1976 single, Blitzkrieg Bop, hit like a sonic punch to the gut. 3 chords, maximum altitude, and that unforgettable "Hey ho, let's go!"
Hey ho, let's go!
chant that became punk rock's battle cry. But what made 4 guys from Queens think they could revolutionize music with the simplest approach possible? Their CBGB shows were legendary, creating the blueprint for punk rebellion that would spread across 2 continents. Each song clocked in under 3 minutes, but those minutes packed enough energy to power entire movements. The Ramones proved that sometimes the most revolutionary music comes from rejecting everything complicated. No guitar solos, no pretension, just pure rock and roll fury that inspired countless bands to pick up instruments and start their own revolutions. But while punk rock was tearing things down in New York, across the Atlantic, another band was reshaping rock with soaring harmonies. Number 11, Fleetwood Mac. Fleetwood Mac's transformation from British blues rockers to pop rock royalty reached its peak in 1977 with Rumors. The album turned the band's messy personal breakdowns into musical gold, selling over 10 million copies in its first month. When relationships within the band fell apart, they channeled that heartbreak into some of the most harmonious music ever recorded. How do you create beautiful music when your personal life is crumbling around you? Dreams floated across FM radio like a beautiful confession, while Go Your Own Way turned romantic devastation into an anthem everyone could sing along with. Lindsey Buckingham, Stevie Nicks, and Christine McVie's voices blended into something that felt both polished and painfully honest. The band discovered how to transform private turmoil into universal emotions that resonated with millions of listeners going through their own relationship drama. Fleetwood Mac turned heartbreak into harmony, but on the opposite coast, a California band was turning harmony into pure joy. Number 10, the Eagles. The Eagles perfected the West Coast sound that defined mid-70s rock. Their country rock blend created the ultimate soundtrack for American highways, with Hotel California becoming both a song and a cultural phenomenon. The track painted a mysterious picture of California excess that somehow captured everything beautiful and haunting about that decade. What is it about a song that makes you feel like you're driving into the sunset even when you're sitting on your living room floor? Songs like Take It Easy, and Desperado became road trip essentials, while their greatest hits compilation became one of the best-selling albums in American history. The Eagles understood that great California rock needed both sunshine and shadows. Their harmonies were smooth as silk, but their lyrics acknowledged the darkness lurking beneath the Golden State's promise. They represented the California dream with all its contradictions intact. While the Eagles ruled American highways, Britain sent over a band that ruled the world with operatic rock. Number 9, Queen. Queen redefined what rock could be with 1975's Bohemian Rhapsody, a 6-minute epic that moved from piano ballad to heavy metal to mock opera without missing a beat. Radio programmers thought Freddie Mercury and company had lost their minds, but listeners heard pure genius. The song proved that rock singles could be as complex and ambitious as classical compositions. Who else but Freddie Mercury could convince the world that opera belonged in rock and roll? Mercury's 4-octave voice soared above Brian May's intricate guitar arrangements, while the band crafted studio sounds that seemed impossible. Live, Mercury commanded stages like a benevolent emperor, turning massive crowds into his personal choir. Queen showed that rock could be intellectual without being pretentious, theatrical without being fake. They expanded the very definition of what popular music could achieve. Queen showed rock could be opera, but another British band turned it into pure power. Number 8, Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin transformed from promising blues rockers into rock gods during the 70s, with 1971 Led Zeppelin's 4 serving as their coronation. Stairway to Heaven became more than a song. It became a rite of passage for an entire generation. Jimmy Page's musical guitar work combined with Robert Plant's otherworldly vocals to create music that felt like ancient magic translated into electric sound. How do you create music that sounds both ancient and futuristic at the same time? The band fused blues, folk, and heavy rock into something mythological. John Paul Jones and John Bonham provided rhythmic foundations that could level buildings, while Page's production created sonic landscapes that transported listeners into other realms. Zeppelin proved that album-oriented rock could fill stadiums, and that mystery was just as important as musicianship in creating lasting legends. As Zeppelin pushed rock into mythical heights, another band took it back to the streets. Number 7, Lynyrd Skynyrd. Lynyrd Skynyrd brought Southern identity to mainstream rock with a triple guitar attack that could melt highways. Their 1973 debut introduced the world to Jacksonville's finest storytellers, who sang about where they came from with zero apologies. Freebird started as a tender ballad before exploding into a guitar symphony that became every concert's unofficial closing anthem. What makes a song so powerful that crowds still scream for it decades later? Sweet Home Alabama, answered Neil Young's Southern Man with defiant pride, becoming cultural shorthand for Southern rock rebellion. Ronnie Van Zant's lyrics celebrated working-class values, while the band's multi-guitar arrangements created sonic landscapes as wide as southern skies. They proved that authentic rock voices could emerge from anywhere, not just the industry capitals of New York and Los Angeles. But while Skynyrd sang for the South, New York was grooving to something much funkier. Number 6, Kool and the Gang. Kool and the Gang helped bring funk to mainstream America with horn-driven grooves that made dancing inevitable. Tracks like Jungle Boogie, and Hollywood Swinging turned any room into a dance floor, bridging the gap between jazz sophistication and street-level punk. Their tight rhythms and clever arrangements proved that complex music could still feel effortless and joyful. Have you ever heard a song that made it impossible to stand still? DJs embraced them because they understood funk's secret weapon, how to make people move without thinking about it. The band captured an era's party spirit while maintaining musical intelligence, creating songs that worked equally well at block parties and on FM radio. They helped establish funk as a commercial force that would influence everything from disco to hip-hop. If you're loving this journey through rock history, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our deep dives into music's greatest stories. And while Kool and the Gang filled dance floors, another band was about to define disco itself. Number 5, Bee Gees. The Bee Gees transformed themselves from soft rock balladeers into disco's defining architects. When Saturday Night Fever hit theaters in 1977, its falsetto harmonies became the sound of a cultural revolution. The soundtrack sold over 40 million copies, making the Bee Gees the voice of an entire era. Could three brothers from Australia really capture the essence of New York's disco scene better than anyone else? Staying Alive and Night Fever weren't just songs. They were anthems for people who wanted to escape into glamour, fashion, and the hypnotic rhythm of the disco beat. Their sophisticated production elevated disco from a dance trend into an art form, proving that music designed for movement could also move souls. The Bee Gees understood that disco was about transformation, turning ordinary nights into celebrations. The Bee Gees owned the dance floor, but another British group owned the airwaves with socially charged anthems. Number 4, Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd's 1973 masterpiece, The Dark Side of the Moon, spent hundreds of weeks on the Billboard charts, becoming the album serious listeners had to own. This wasn't just a collection of songs, it was a sonic journey through alienation, mortality, and the human condition, wrapped in soundscapes that seemed to bend reality itself. What happens when musicians stop writing songs and start composing experiences? Roger Walter's philosophical lyrics combined with David Gilmour's ethereal guitar work to create music that felt both deeply personal and universally resonant. The band elevated concerts into multimedia experiences, using spectacular visuals that matched their conceptual ambitions. Pink Floyd captured the decade's introspection and political questioning, creating soundtracks for late-night conversations about existence and society. Pink Floyd gave the decade its soundtrack of introspection, but another band gave it its fists in the air anthems. Number 3, AC/DC. AC/DC stripped hard rock down to its essential elements: massive riffs, thunderous rhythms, and working-class swagger that suggested they'd rather be in a bar fight than a recording studio. Albums like Let There Be Rock and Highway to Hell turned these Australian rebels into global superstars by proving that straight-ahead rock could still move mountains. Why complicate things when the simple can shake the world? Angus Young's schoolboy uniform and manic stage presence became iconic, while his brother Malcolm's rhythm guitar provided foundations for some of rock's most devastating riffs. AC/DC built their massive fan base through relentless touring and songs that hit like sledgehammers. Their no-frills approach was the perfect antidote to prog rock pretension: honest, powerful music designed to make people forget their troubles. But as AC/DC cranked up the volume, another band was making fans scream in arenas across America. Number 2, Kiss. Kiss understood that in the arena rock era, spectacle was just as important as songs. Their makeup and costumes turned them into comic book characters come to life, while pyrotechnics and theatrical staging made every concert feel like a celebration. Rock and Roll All Night became both an anthem and a philosophy, a declaration that music should be about joy, escape, and community. What if rock concerts could be as exciting as superhero movies? The Kiss Army wasn't just a fan base, it was a movement that proved rock could be theater without losing its power. They pioneered merchandising and fan engagement on scales no one had imagined, turning concerts into experiences fans would remember forever. Critics dismissed them as gimmicky, but millions of fans knew better. Kiss had rediscovered how to make rock and roll feel magical. Yes, if Kiss gave the 70s its fireworks, the band at number 1 gave it its very soul. Number 1, the Rolling Stones. The Rolling Stones entered the 70s as established stars, but spent the decades cementing their legend. Albums like Sticky Fingers and Exile on Main Street defined gritty, blues-driven rock, while their massive tours broke attendance records worldwide. They represented rock's persistent, rebellious core throughout a decade of changing musical fashions. How do you stay dangerous and relevant when you're already famous? While other bands experimented with new sounds, the Stones refined their blues-based approach into something that felt both timeless and urgently contemporary. They understood that great rock wasn't about innovation. It was about capturing eternal human truth in 3-chord progressions that could move souls. Dubbed the greatest rock and roll band in the world, their swagger embodied the decade's mix of danger, decadence, and lasting cool. Which of these bands defined the 70s for you? And if you could only save one album from this entire era to represent the spirit of 1970s rock, which would capture that decade's essence for future generations? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, hit that like button, subscribe for more musical deep dives, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next videos.